get Conduit News Radio out to more people, to make them know who we are and what we're talking about. So I had an idea. What you see here is the 2018 Arkansas Democrat Gazette Best of the Best Reader's Choice Awards. And it says here, let your voice be heard during the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's annual Best of the Best contest. Central Arkansas residents can vote for their favorite restaurants, salons, and more. Well, they can also vote for their favorite radio host. So for those of you listening in Central Arkansas, I would encourage you to go and fill out the Best of the Best. As you can see right here, you get to the Best Local Radio DJ. You know what? Just the fact of getting nominated. Now, you have to fill out at least 10 slots in order for your nominations to be considered. So make sure you're educated about where is the best golf course, in your opinion, in Central Arkansas. But if you'll just put my name in there, I think just being nominated would give Conduit News a platform to get in front of other people, to get in front of new listeners, and because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get in front of as many new people as we possibly can, because knowledge is power, like you've always heard us say. Thomas Jefferson said, an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. So I would encourage you, this is just an idea, one way you could help build the Liberty Machine.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
McCutcheon, Joey, welcome back to the program, sir.
Because I've been up here in the legislature when
so can you just kind of give us a rundown? Have you seen this article and you know, were you at the Bar Association meeting, or do you have friends that were there?
Yeah, I had friends that were there. Actually, I'm in trial this week, and so wasn't able to attend the Bar Association meeting. But I've read the article, but you know what we can't lose focus of is we can't trade away our right, for everything that Randy Zook thinks is quotes is going to bring jobs to Arkansas. I mean, come on, what's going to bring jobs to Arkansas are meat and potatoes things like lowering tax rates, making sure that we have skilled folks to fill jobs. I mean, we have the lowest unemployment rate that we've ever had in the history of our state now. We never hear about this attack on our Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury until tort reform comes up. Kind of comical how tort reform is going to cure every ill in the country. But what we do know, Paul, is that there's a massive amount of corruption going on in this state. We know that Jason Barrett has been assigned as the special prosecutor to look into prosecuting Jake Files, who, by the way, yesterday had got 18 months for the River Valley theft, and David Norsworthy, who's behind this tort reform effort. He and his partner Michael Morton. What we know is that they gave Jake Files an $80,000. At least Norsworthy gave Jake Files an $80,000 wire transfer 1 week after similar measures were instituted in 2014 to take away our rights. So before we sell our rights down the river, we better be careful.
You're exactly right about that. As I read Randy Zook, Randy Zook is the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce president. Hey, Joe, can you cue up this audio real quick? I want everybody to hear. Anytime I mention Randy Zook's name, I try to make an effort to remind people who he is, what he sounds like. This is Randy Zook's opinion on parents helping their kids with their homework. Take a listen.
Because I've been up here in the legislature when folks were rattling around and screaming bloody murder, and I can't help my kid with their homework. Well, they shouldn't be helping their kid with the homework in the first place. You know, that's a teacher's job. That's my opinion. Well, they shouldn't be helping their kid with the homework in the first place. You know, that's a teacher's job.
As a very elitist mentality, and actually terrifying. I mean, if that anyway, I just wanted to.
think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
It's all about the border, baby. It's all about the border. Welcome to the program. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of that. We want you to be a part of the program. One of the ways you can do that is to call or text 870-275-9799. You can also sound off over on our Facebook page. Our Facebook live feed is up and going, facebook.com/Conduit News, as well as over on YouTube at Conduit News and conduitnews.com. So I guess I mentioned a little bit about this border situation back on Monday when you had the border, you had in the headlines the border chase where 5 immigrants, I think, were ejected during like a 100-mile-an-hour chase with the border patrol. And I want to say it was a regular-sized Suburban, and there were 14 other people inside. What's going on at the border is a violation of American sovereignty. That's the first thing you need to know. When we have illegal immigration, it does a lot of things. It affects our economy. It affects our wages. But, it affects the faith and confidence that we have in our rule of law. But the number one thing it does is a violation of our sovereignty and the concept that we as Americans get to set an immigration policy. We get to decide who comes here. And that doesn't mean that we're anti-immigrant because we have things called ports of entry. And that is a way, a means by which you can come to this country, you can migrate to this country legally. The word illegal is being left out of almost every mainstream media report. It's just immigrants, immigrants, immigrants. They are not immigrants. If they respect our laws and they come the right way, then they are immigrants. It's very important that you understand that. I'm telling you, I have I've been seeing on Twitter. Matter of fact, my wife and I were going. She started asking questions. She, plugged into social media, and she started asking questions based on what she was seeing. What's going on, and we started looking at some of these Hollywood types who are sounding off. They're trying to make Christians and things sound hypocritical. They're quoting Bible. All of a sudden now they're very interested in quoting Scripture in the Bible, and they talk about these verses with immigrants and things like that. And somebody did make the point, illegal immigrant versus immigrant, that is a big difference, number one. Number two, all of these celebrities with their walls and their gates around their multi-million-dollar homes. By the way, I don't know of any of them opening up their homes to these illegal immigrant families. It's all about the border. I want to talk about this. This is something that we haven't discussed in a very long time. Arguably, what goes on at our southern border is the most dangerous activities on the face of the planet. What goes on in the history, and you can look all of this up, it's arguably, I don't know where you'd rather be. Would you rather be in Iraq, Afghanistan, somewhere in the Middle East? Or would you rather be on the southern border where under the Obama administration, they posted signs on the United States side warning people who are traveling on U.S. soil that they can't guarantee their safety, that they might want to turn around and take another route because of the violence, because of the threat of kidnapping, of human trafficking, of getting just involved in being at the wrong place at the wrong time. The fact that they found vans full of torsos. The fact that they have rape trees. I mean, folks, this is not something that the mainstream media wants to tell you about, but it's one of the most dangerous places you can be on the planet, are parts of our southern border. Certain areas of our southern border are some of the worst conditions imaginable. And it's because of the violence. And you talk about a Wild West mentality. It goes far beyond that, especially when you look at how brutal some of these gangs are. And if you actually look into some of their religious concepts, the people that they worship, it is a death cult in many ways. So this does affect Arkansas. There is an Arkansas angle here. But before we get to that, I want to talk broadly about the national implications here. Mainstream media has been, and some people think, and I would tend to agree with them, that one of the reasons that this is happening is that you have the IG report. So all of this stuff was happening under Obama. Can we go and can you pull up the Daily Caller article? I want to start. I want to start here because this is how it's the most hypocritical. Look at all of these photos right here. Here are the photos of Obama's illegal immigrant detention facilities. The media won't show you. Okay, these were all under the Obama administration. Do you see all these kids separated from their parents? Scroll down here. Look at these photos. Look, they've got tin foil, aluminum foil, or blankets on. They have, look at all these. Look at these sad, terrible photos. Look at this one where there's a baby on the floor. I mean, are we seeing these photos? Now this is all, so this has all been going on. I was talking with, people, again, my wife, we were scrolling through social media and everybody's like, yeah, but Jeff Sessions, this is all his fault. Well, how do you explain these photos then? How do you explain these photos? Now, it may be that what this is really about is that Donald Trump has ended the catch and release program. So maybe under Obama, you hung out here for a little while and eventually it was like, all right, get out of here, kid. Go away, kid. You bothered me. And eventually there they go. And then they're in the population and they're free to just go to whatever embassy they want to go to. And then, of course, we know that the Mexican embassies here in America, they have information on how to get on American welfare. Those stories are well documented. But look at these photos. Where was the outrage? Somebody tell me, where was the outrage? And now we have them complaining about, that these are prison facilities. These are prison facilities that we're having trouble, processing. We can't understand why anybody who would show up and break a sovereign country's law would end up in a detaining area or a prison facility. I don't even care what you call it. Of course we've got to detain these individuals. Of course we have to. I mean, I was talking to my wife yesterday, and she was saying, so they separate the kids and the parents because everybody's saying they separate the kids and the parents. Oh, how terrible it is. And I said, yeah. I said, just like if you've done something wrong, if you were caught stealing and you got arrested stealing and you had our daughter with you, they're gonna upon arrest, they're gonna eventually separate you two. The child's gonna go somewhere, and you're gonna go into a cell by yourself. That's the way it's going to happen. And that's what is happening here. Now, what did Donald Trump do? Some people might think it's actually genius in a way. So we say 2 of the 32 photos originally included in this post were found to be from 2018. Okay, so 2 of those photos that you saw just now, Daily Caller saying was from 2018, not during the Obama administration. Okay, all right, 2 of the 32. So anyway, 30 of those photos were clearly of a lot of kids. So President Trump, a lot of people say what he has done here, the media works itself up into a frenzy here over a policy that has been going on for a while. And he comes out and he signs an executive order, says, okay, we're still going to have a zero tolerance policy, but we'll keep kids and families together. and the left loses their mind. When you say one thing about Donald Trump, he certainly, when there is a populist swing, he certainly gets on the side of whatever the at least apparent groundswell movement tends to be, what it apparently tends to gravitate towards. So he signed it, and it wasn't good enough. That's right. He signed it, and it wasn't good enough. Joe, do we have is there another article? I think I missed another Daily Caller article about, oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, let me throw that up there. So media unsatisfied by Trump's executive order on family separations. Members of the media and Democrats are unsatisfied with President Trump's executive order temporarily ending family separations at the border, and are now urging him to end his zero-tolerance policy on prosecuting people who cross the border illegally. So this is not about kids. Again, this is all about victim and oppressor, and the Democrats, they can't stand it anytime Trump tries to do anything that they say on illegal immigrants. They just would rather the illegal immigrants really remain victims. President Trump announced Wednesday that he would allow families to be detained together while they wait to be prosecuted for illegal border crossings. Immigration law currently requires children to be sheltered separately as their parents await trial. So, I mean, you could make some constitutional arguments that Trump doesn't even have the authority to do this executive order. But he's giving Congress the opportunity. Now, what did by the way, what is the Democrats' best hope for taking the House? Nancy Pelosi have to say about all of this? The best hope for the Democrat Party, Nancy Pelosi. Breitbart News says that Nancy Pelosi demands zero border enforcement. Detention of illegal aliens is form of child abuse. President Donald Trump's executive order, which modifies his zero-tolerance policy at the United States-Mexico border, John Binder writes, left Democrats in the open borders lobby fighting for an end to all border enforcement, inviting floods of illegal immigration and cheap foreign labor into the country. So this is what it's really about, open borders. Now, one thing that you haven't heard very many people talk about is child trafficking. Under the current law that I believe is a George W. Bush era law, you can walk up to the border or cross illegally with a child and say, this is my child. And under the previous catch and release policy, you can just use your imagination to see how sickos would pervert this policy. Is that really your child or not? Human trafficking of children is a giant problem. It is a worldwide problem. And the people who practice such things take advantage of porous borders and lax enforcement, for sure, 100%. So if anything, the zero-tolerance policy right now and ending catch and release is seriously damaging a whole lot of child trafficking and human trafficking in general, and the means of how they are able to basically covertly sell slaves. Nobody wants to talk about that. Do you know why? Because it would give a lot of credit where credit should be due, where it is due, to President Donald Trump and what he's trying to do. Again, I'll refer you to my first remarks. One of the most dangerous places on the face of the planet are parts of our southern border. And you hear President Trump talk about weakness versus being strong. How is the, quote, greatest country on the face of the planet so weak when it comes to enforcing our borders? And we get to decide who comes here. If you want to come here, there are ports of entry. You can do it the legal way, and then you are an immigrant. But right now, these people are actually, the legal word is illegal aliens.
They are illegal aliens coming across the border. We're going to take a break. I'm going to reset. We're going to talk more about this. There's an Arkansas angle. Asa Hutchinson may be on board with housing some of these illegal aliens at the Little Rock Air Force Base. We'll talk more about that the rest of the hour. Back in a minute.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
A few of your comments on Facebook. Somebody says, why does the left not have a problem with Child Protective Services tearing children away from their parents and searching their houses with court orders and, without properly obtained warrants, medical kidnapping? What about that? That's Amy. Amy, it's a great point. Well, then, the parents deserve it at that point. Not that there aren't times where, the government is not warranted to step in and try to, where there's an abusive situation. But you're exactly right. The left is perfectly happy to have a zero tolerance policy and have the law, the full weight of the law, apply in that situation. I have another text message here. What happens, okay, what happens if an illegal parent came over with their kids and stole a car? Is it then okay to charge them and then put them in jail and separate them from their children? Is it illegal to come to the United States without permission? Yes. That's the whole reason why you separate them. It's not rocket science. But the left demagogues the issue because there's just the sheer volume, and they get to take these photos, and they get to try to get the next Time magazine cover. What about this? What if you give the parents a choice, and you say, okay, you can either be separated from your kids or you can turn around and go back home. Separate from kids, thank you. How many of them would say, okay, yeah, separate my kids? At some point, what kind of we have to have border security. We need the wall. It's all true. Everything, all of this stuff. Everything that the president was campaigning on that really was lost on me for the most part in 2016 is all very legitimate right now if you kind of take a broad look at things. Of course, the Arkansas Times and the Democrats here in Arkansas. We got to talk about the Democrats here in Arkansas. We got to talk about what they're trying to say. Because of Donald Trump, this is the narrative. I'm not saying this is the truth. But because of Donald Trump and how egregious it is that he was, of course, he signed the executive order. Not good enough, though, right? Democrats are now saying, no, you don't need to be arresting anybody. Just let them all come in. Of course, the Democrats want the votes. But now the Arkansas Democrat Party is criticizing the Governor Asa Hutchinson for sending our National Guard troops down to the border at President Donald Trump's request. And they're saying, Asa, you gotta call the Guard back home. Call the Guard back home, Asa, because Donald Trump is separating kids from their parents after they've committed crimes. Oh, the agony. Just wanted to remind you that the Democrats are still cuckoo. So we have Max Brantley in typical form. And I kind of like this. This is fun, isn't it? Isn't it fun when you have clear lines? Now, the lines are going to get blurry here in just a minute because, Asa Hutchinson and the whole Little Rock Air Force Base and everything else. I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. But for now, let's just pretend that we have unity on a different side, on each side of the political aisle. We'll just pretend for a moment. You have Max Brantley in typical liberal fashion. The family separations won't stop Asa from sending Guard to the border. French Hill parrots Trump. Now, of course, Congressman French Hill, Republican, is in the crosshairs of the Democrats. He's got an opponent. They're hoping for this blue wave, right? And it may be close because of Pulaski County. But the Democrats the left wants Asa to stop sending troops to the border. Of course, he's not going to do that. He's not going to call them back. You have the new minority leader, State Representative Charles Blake. Here it is. Headline, State's top Democrat asks governor to stop deploying Arkansas National Guard to border because of the outrage. The top Democrats in the State House and Senate asked Governor Asa Hutchinson on Wednesday to end the deployment of Arkansas National Guard orders. By the way, this is the whole reason, and much of the reason why Asa Hutchinson got the Donald Trump endorsement in the first place was this whole border issue, by the way, and sending the National Guard. And you remember the last-minute trip. Well, I don't know if it wasn't last minute. It was a last-minute endorsement, which showed you how worried Asa was that he didn't really know how things were going to go in that primary, even though he won it handily. House Minority Leader Charles Blake and Senate Minority Leader Keith Ingram sent separate letters to Hutchinson. The letters also asked the Arkansas National Guard's top official to testify before a joint legislative committee regarding deployment. Again, cuckoo. Mind everybody, that's who Randy Zook is. He basically is saying that this bad tort reform amendment, he might as well say it's the cure to cancer, Joey.
That's it. I mean, but what we know it does do is put a value on human life when our elderly folks are abused in nursing homes. We know that it puts a value on children's lives, and if we want to encourage bad doctors to come into our state, bad nursing home owners to come into our state, then pass this measure. Conduct rewarded, conduct repeated, and that is not the types of folks we want to attract into our state. We need to make our society safer, not less safe. And, to rig the system in favor of special interests, that's just wrong. Mm-hmm. And we better be careful. It's a bait and switch. They want to slam greedy trial lawyers, and then take away our rights. And we saw this happen with Issue 3, where they sold it as ethics reform, and then they increased term limits, and they increased legislator pay. How's that ethics thing worked out for us over the last few years?
Hey, do you think convincing what do we do? I mean, because I'm not a supporter of Issue 1. I could support some tort reform, but not this. This is industry specific tort reform for the nursing homes. Do you think part of the effort here? You mentioned corruption at the top of the interview. Part of the effort to convince the people to vote against this has got to start with telling people what a corrupt state we are, because I mean, it is amazing to me that you have a judge that pleads guilty to accepting a bribe in exchange for lowering a judgment for a nursing home owner. Okay, that is recent history here in Arkansas. You have now the $80,000 wire transfer that we know about. All of this stuff, and we went ahead and did what the nursing homes wanted anyway. I feel like that alone, like before we could talk about what this does or what it doesn't do, I feel like the other side needs to explain that away before we can talk about the actual merits of it, because on its face, red flags go up all over the place when it comes to special interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Morton bribes a circuit court judge to lower the verdict of a person abused in a nursing home. And then his partner gives an $80,000 wire transfer to a state senator. When they can't get it done that way, then they go to the legislature and change the rules. And
the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so with all the hubbubaloo about what did I say? Well, what is this? What am I supposed to say? Hullabaloo? No, I don't know. Who cares? It doesn't matter. The hubbub, yeah. So with all the hubbub about kids being separated from their parents. And now Donald Trump issued the executive order saying we're still going to have a zero-tolerance policy in terms of we're ending catch and release. We're going to detain these people, but we'll keep them together. We'll keep families together. The Democrats say, no, not good enough. We just really, what we meant was, Nancy Pelosi says, what we meant was, I wonder if Clark Tucker feels the same way, who's running against French Hill. What we meant was, we don't want any border enforcement. You shouldn't be detaining these people. Okay. Well, so, in the meantime, what are you going to do with all these people? What are you going to do with these people crossing the border? Where are these people coming from? Some people think they're all being urged to come by, like, George Soros money. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. Well, just so happens that right before the primary here in Arkansas, when Asa flew to D.C. and somehow got Trump to endorse him, there was talk all the way back then that Arkansas may be used as a place to house these illegal immigrants. You got to put them somewhere. You can go all the way back to May the 18th. Hunter Field reported with the Gazette, Arkansas governor seeks details on taking in foreign kids, will ask Trump on D.C. visit. Quote, I'm anxious to hear more details on that. This is what Hutchinson said in a news conference, said that there are reports about the possibility of foreign children being housed at the military base. Foreign children, we're talking about illegal immigrants. And Asa said he was going to need conversations directly with Trump. This was back on, again, June the 18th. Quote, it's also an opportunity to have border discussion with state governors and with the president on our border security efforts. Okay. So let's fast forward to June the 20th. We're a month later. And because that was what, May the 20th? Hang on one second. Yeah, that was May 18th. And then this is June 20th. Headline, Governor says federal agency considering 2 sites in Arkansas to house migrants. You mean illegal immigrants, right? Not migrants. You mean illegal aliens, right? Do you remember when illegal alien used to be a legal term and it was acceptable? The Overton window, though, has now shifted. You can't say illegal immigrant. You used to it was you can't say illegal alien. Alien is offensive, so it's illegal immigrant. And now it's just immigrant. Governor Asa Hutchinson says he believes federal officials' review of the Little Rock Air Force Base to determine if it's suitable to house migrant children, again, illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. See, I can't even say illegal aliens. It's still scheduled for Thursday. So today they're going to do a walkthrough through the Little Rock Air Force Base today to figure out if this is going to happen or not. Now, so 2 days ago, the governor said, quote, let me just make it clear. I want to be helpful if we can help carry out the policy of keeping families together. So Asa is here. I guess he was very upset that families are being separated. Now, I want to contrast this with what Donald Trump did. What Donald Trump did was on the urging of his wife and his daughter, and really it was done in a way, it was done in a way to basically say, okay, let's get funding for the border wall. I'll do this executive order and let's get serious about it. But Donald Trump didn't care. I mean, let's be perfectly honest here. Donald Trump didn't care about separating kids from their families because, number one, you're committing a crime. These are the laws of the country. He even said so in his press conference, that we have to be strong. And sometimes in order to be strong, that means you don't have a heart. When it comes to enforcing the law dispassionately, meaning you leave your emotions out of it. This is what the law is. Now, for this country, which essentially is a bunch of, basically our sensibilities in this country today are so overtly emotional that we have we don't think critically, and we are led by our emotions, and we're led by a media that lies to you and manipulates you and thinks that they can control you by putting the next piece of red meat. By the way, we're not talking about the IG report this week, are we? We're not talking about how James Comey did show bias. We're not talking about how Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were conspiring to make sure that Donald Trump wouldn't be president. We're not talking about how Hillary Clinton was let off, all because they thought she was going to be president. We're not talking about that. We're also not talking about some other details that are in the IG report that are absolutely horrifying in terms of the questions that they raise. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this because this is what the media has now decided to put out there, and look how effective they are. Look how effective they are at changing the narrative. They're very effective. But the governor says here, I guess I just wanted to contrast that. You have Donald Trump doing what he did, but a couple of days ago, Governor Hutchinson was very, very bothered by children being separated from their family. And what that tells you is the mainstream media, just like it has an effect on weak-minded liberals, it also has an effect on the governor in a way. I mean, and it affects us all if we're honest, but the governor's probably been seeing the pictures and probably been watching CNN, and the governor was very upset by children being separated from their parents, when in any other crime you commit, you're going to get separated from your parents. They're going to separate the parent from the child if you commit a crime. This is the way things go. And to claim otherwise is to cave in to this hysteria. It is absolute hysteria is what this is. And it wasn't an issue when Obama was doing it. Okay? Nancy Pelosi and everybody, nobody was upset about children being separated from their parents and being held in detainment facilities when Obama was doing it. We just showed you the pictures on the first side of the hour here. All these pictures from the Obama administration of kids in blankets and sleeping on the floor and everything else. Yeah, the conditions look pretty miserable. But again, you broke the law. So the governor, a couple of days ago, that this is what he was saying. He wants to help if he can unify, meaning bring the kids here. Bring them to Arkansas if we can keep them together. And now, fast forward to today's headline. U.S. officials to size up Air Base as detainee site. So there's a few quotes in here we got to get to. The Air Force Base spokesman confirmed Wednesday morning the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services would survey the Jacksonville base located 17 miles northeast of Little Rock to decide whether children from other countries could be kept there. Governor, again, quote, "Let me make it clear. I want to be helpful if we can carry out the policy of keeping the families together." You have Congressman French Hill being challenged by Democrat Clark Tucker, said in a statement that he supports Trump's executive order to keep families together while their status is determined, and that he's working with colleagues to provide a permanent, compassionate solution. However, French Hill says these children belong with their parents at the border, not hundreds of miles away at Little Rock Air Force Base or other locations in Arkansas. Good for French Hill. Good for French Hill here. Hutchinson stressed that today's visit is preliminary. Nothing is decided. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be wrong, but I thought right before the primary, Governor Hutchinson went on radio, and I thought he said that Arkansas is not going to take any of these illegal alien children. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that he went on radio and he said that. Does anyone else remember that? Am I the only one that before the primary that's what he said? Because I believe I was listening, or maybe I was watching online, and this was like the day of or the day before the primary. People maybe need to go back and look at what was said when it comes to this particular issue. The Gazette writes, in light of Trump's executive order, it was not clear whether federal officials would consider the Jacksonville base for holding minors who crossed the border alone or detained families. Now, if you go down further here, we're going to get the rest, or I guess a little bit more of the Arkansas delegation's take on this. Hutchinson said, quote, "This is a very large logistical challenge, and if we can be helpful in supporting that policy, then we absolutely want to be helpful." Okay, so the governor is 100% behind housing illegal alien children at the Little Rock Air Force Base, is what it sounds like to me, if he can be helpful, he says. A spokesman for the United States Senate, Senator Tom Cotton, said the senator was not available to comment on the possibility of children being held at the air base, but, quote, "Bottom line, Cotton opposes this." According to James Arnold, the spokesman, he said this in an email. So the Gazette is reporting that Senator Tom Cotton does not support illegal alien families or children being housed in the state of Arkansas. Again, good for French Hill and good for Senator Tom Cotton. Before Trump signed the order, State Representative Clark Tucker, a Democrat from Little Rock, said in a statement that he, quote, cannot fathom needlessly separating a child from their mother or father. Is it needless, though, Clark? Come on. You're an attorney. You know exactly what the policy is. When you get caught committing a crime, you separate people. That's what happens. Quote, I cannot support using the Little Rock Air Force Base to implement this shameful policy. Okay, so this was before Trump signed the order keeping families together. And Clark Tucker came out in probably what is a veiled attempt to look somewhat conservative. I cannot support using the Little Rock Air Force Base to implement this shameful policy. Let's see, what else do we have? Going down here, Trump's family separation policy has been compared by some to the period in American history. Yeah, the internment camps. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Joe, show the Obama photos again. Show the Obama photos. Look at this. These are from the Obama era, doing the exact same thing, separating children from families. And Donald Trump, really what this is about is that Donald Trump is continuing this, and he's ended catch and release. And the fact that he's continuing this and ending catch and release, it's the catch and release that the Democrats are so mad about. And that's why they're now saying, and there's millions of Americans on social media that are buying this garbage that Donald Trump is the next FDR, by the way, a Democrat, who imprisoned Japanese people in internment camps. It's reminiscent of one of the darkest days in American history where we had internment camps. These are photos from the Obama administration. Now, go down, Joe. Go down. Go back down. Look at that one. Look at that one. You see the kids with their space blankets on? Their little... You see, look how heartless. Look at this. Isn't this awesome? Look, they're in a chain link fence. They're in a holding cell. I mean, good grief. This is such a double standard. And look, you have all the photos cited. This one's from Reuters. Scroll down a little bit, Joe. What's this one from? This next one is from, again, Reuters. These are all available out there, and it's just one big hypocritical mess. So, what do you think? First of all, are you okay with what Donald Trump did? I would like to know. Are you okay with Donald Trump essentially saying, look, okay, we won't separate the children and families, or the children and parents. We're not going to separate them anymore, keep them together, but we're still going to keep them detained. Now, I don't know what that does in terms of how you detain them. I think you'd probably have to rework a bunch of facilities to do that. Okay, then the second question is, what do you think about the governor doing what he's doing, or entertaining the idea of saying, yeah, we want to help. If we have these facilities, we'll house the kids here. I mean, I think Congressman French Hill is onto something when he says, look, yeah, sure, don't separate the kids from their parents, but they don't need to be in Arkansas. They need to be at the border. We need to keep them at the border. We need to send them back. I mean, why would we want to bring them in all the way back into Arkansas? Why not send them back home? Why not get them out of here? That's what should be happening, right? The telephone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. We're going to take a break. It's all about the border, baby. We'll be talking about this. Let me know what you think. 870-275-9799. Back in a minute.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Welcome to the Arkansas Obamacare Hotline. We would be more than happy to help you enroll in Arkansas Obamacare today. We just need a little information about you. Let's get started. If you're disabled, pregnant, or looking for medical care for your child, the program is currently full, and there's no doctors to see you. Please hang up now. If you're an able-bodied adult, please press 1. If you're currently employed, we're sorry, but you most likely do not qualify for the program. Please quit your job and call back later. If you don't work and instead play video games all day with your cats in your grandmother's basement, please press 1. If you've never lived in Arkansas, press 1. If you currently live in another state, press 1. If you recently purchased a home in New Jersey for $750,000, please press 1. If your current identity has previously been used by another person, was created before your actual date of birth, or doesn't really exist, please press 1. Congratulations! It sounds like you're the perfect candidate to receive Arkansas Obamacare. Please stay on the line, and a hardworking DHS employee will be with you as soon as possible. While you're waiting, feel free to relax as your ambitions to gainful employment fade away. PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Is this an immigration situation down at the border, or is it an invasion? Is it an invasion? So that's what Gary on Facebook is saying, that this isn't really an immigration issue as much as it's an invasion issue. I got another text message. Somebody saying, do we really think our enemies are so foolish as to not infiltrate the illegal population to build large cells to bring us down in the future? There are national security implications here. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think Senator Tom Cotton opposing this, according to his spokesperson, opposing the Little Rock Air Force Base being used to house these illegal immigrants, I think he's opposing it probably number one reason for national security implications. Because do we know who's really going to be coming here? I mean, are they really even families? You can because the way the law is written, you just show up at the border, say, yeah, this is my son or this is my daughter. The human trafficking implications here are huge. How long will they stay here? It's a really good point. I bet national security is the number one reason why you don't want a bunch of illegal aliens to get to the border and then make it all the way into the middle of America and be housed at the Little Rock Air Force Base. I think I'll pass. Now, whether or not the governor's going to agree to this or whether or not he can do anything about it one way or the other, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'll tell you one thing. If they can get these people signed up for Arkansas Works, they do it in a heartbeat. The insurance companies certainly are would be salivating for something like this. Or, hey, let's just remove the whole healthcare thing in general. Let's just say that Arkansas gets money to spend if we do this. That the federal government's going to pay Arkansas to do it. Do you think the Arkansas General Assembly will be on board with it? If the federal government says, hey, Arkansas, we'll give you X amount of $1 billion to house these people, these illegal aliens, do you think we'll do it for money? And this goes back to the fact that we're in a budget crisis here in the state of Arkansas. We have no money. We have no money for highways. We have no money for education. We have no money for all of the things. I mean, especially if you look at the teacher insurance, like we have no money because we're spending it all because we have obligated ourselves to pay for these giant welfare programs. I can promise you one thing. If the federal government offers us money to keep these children in the state of Arkansas or their parents or whatever, united as families, I think the Republican leadership will take that deal all day long because anything that gives Arkansas more money to spend under the current leadership, and there is not one example in the last 4 years that would lead us to believe otherwise, they're going to say absolutely bring those families here. Matter of fact, not only, I mean, it would not surprise me one bit if, we say, hey, not only will we take them at the Little Rock Air Force Base, we can refurbish the old Air Force Base up in Blytheville. We'll put them there, and we'll put them, we'll put them wherever. We'll open up all kinds of facilities to house these people if you'll pay us for them, if you'll give us money to do it. Now, come on. I don't know if you'll hear that analysis anywhere else, or that, I guess really what it would be, that's a warning is what it is. Because I think absolutely our state government, the way it's set up, the way it operates, the way it can't spend money fast enough, the way we love to increase spending, I think that absolutely we would say, sure, we don't care. Now, again, Congressman French Hill differs from the governor on this, from what I can tell. I mean, the governor's saying this is just preliminary. They're just coming to the Air Force Base to check it out or whatever, but he says he wants to be able to help he wants to be able to assist the federal government if they want to use these facilities. I mean, that's what I've taken from the reports. I'm just reading what's being reported here. Congressman French Hill says, you know what? Trump's executive order, great, keeps families together, but they shouldn't be in Arkansas. They should be kept at the border. Senator Tom Cotton's office saying, you know what? I don't think these people should be in Arkansas. Bottom line, Cotton opposes, is what the Gazette's reporting. Bottom line, Cotton opposes keeping these kids in Arkansas, these families in Arkansas, these illegal aliens in Arkansas. They should be kept at the border. I would agree with Congressman French Hill, and I would agree with Senator Tom Cotton. Folks, that's all the time we have for this hour. We have one more hour coming your way next. We're going to talk about term limits. We're going to talk about the state of Arkansas government and how much we need term limits restored to where they were, if not even more restrictive. Mr. Tim Jacob from is it restore term limits? What is it, Joe? Term limits it used to be restore. Yeah, it's just term limits, termlimits.com. So we'll talk to Tim Jacob when we come back. And then, just don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Remind everybody, that's who Randy Zook is. He basically is saying that this bad tort reform amendment, he might as well say it's the cure to cancer, Joey.
That's it. I mean, but what we know it does do is put a value on human life when our elderly folks are abused in nursing homes. We know that it puts a value on children's lives, and if we want to encourage bad doctors to come into our state, bad nursing home owners to come into our state, then pass this measure. Conduct rewarded is conduct repeated, and that is not the types of folks we want to attract into our state. We need to make our society safer, not less safe. And, to rig the system in favor of special interest, that's just wrong. Mm-hmm. And we better be careful. It's a bait and switch. They want to slam greedy trial lawyers, and then take away our rights. And we saw this happen with Issue 3, where they sold it as ethics reform, and then they increased term limits, and they increased legislator pay. How's that ethics thing worked out for us over the last few years?
Hey, do you think convincing what do we do? I mean, because I'm not a supporter of Issue 1. I could support some tort reform, but not this. This is industry specific tort reform for the nursing homes. Do you think part of the effort here? You mentioned corruption at the top of the interview. Part of the effort to convince the people to vote against this has got to start with telling people what a corrupt state we are, because I mean, it is amazing to me that you have a judge that pleads guilty to accepting a bribe in exchange for lowering a judgment for a nursing home owner. Okay, that is recent history here in Arkansas. You have now the $80,000 wire transfer that we know about. All of this stuff, and we went ahead and did what the nursing homes wanted anyway. I feel like that alone, like before we could talk about what this does or what it doesn't do, I feel like the other side needs to explain that away before we can talk about the actual merits of it, because on its face, red flags go up all over the place when it comes to special interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Morton bribes a circuit court judge to lower the verdict of a person abused in a nursing home, and then his partner gives an $80,000 wire transfer to a state senator. When they can't get it done that way, then they go to the legislature and change the rules. And that's the scary thing. The balance of power, our separation of powers, will be totally disrupted in a highly political legislative body where Michael Morton and David Norsworthy and special interests can go down there and change the rules in a heartbeat and deny access, close the doors to the courthouse to folks like stay-at-home moms and children and our elderly, and that's the reason that folks like Jerry Cox with the Family Council have come out strongly against this. They understand you can't put a one-size-fits-all price tag on the value of human life. Rose Sims with Arkansas Right to Life has come out against it. Conservative after conservative understands that this is anything but conservative, because we value the Bill of Rights, and we know that without a strong Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury, all the rest of our rights are going to be taken away from us eventually. You can't go. You've got to support all all our Bill of Rights. You can't pick and choose like it's steak and shrimp on a smorgasbord.
Yeah. In a statement Friday, this is the Gazette, in a statement Friday, Arkansas Chamber of Commerce President Randy Zook said attorneys were exaggerating their claims about the changes in Issue 1. Well, I'll take a play out of their playbook. I'm going to say they're exaggerating how great Issue 1 is. But here's his quote. Lawyers who claim the sky is falling because of the rulemaking authority are simply trying to avoid the real issue at hand, which is recruiting doctors to care for our families, boosting our economy, and preventing excessive attorneys' fees. That's what Issue 1 is really all about. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that Issue 1's about, Joey.
Yeah, and it's just...
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
In the first hour, we talked about the border. We talked about illegal aliens potentially being housed at the Little Rock Air Force Base. If you missed the first hour of the program, I would urge you to go back and get it later today. You can find it all at conduitnews.com, podcast, video archives, whatever you're looking for. Also, facebook.com/conduitnews, where we are continuing the live broadcast right now. Hello, Arkansas. Thanks so much for being with us. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine here. The state of Arkansas right now, in the corruption we're seeing in the headlines every single day, might as well be a billboard for term limits. I mean, if there's ever been an indicator that we need term limits here in Arkansas and we need to limit the amount of time these people can stay down there, learn the system to enrich themselves, I don't know what else it will take to get people, understanding that term limits is the way to go. Here to talk more about we have Mr. Tim Jacob is on the line. And the website is arkansastermlimits.org. That's arkansastermlimits.org. Tim, welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you so much, Paul.
The petitions, this is the big deal. I want to have you on, and I'm going to continue to cover this throughout the next 2 weeks. But we got till July 2nd, right? 2 weeks to go to sign the petitions to get this on the ballot, right?
That is exactly right. We've done people around this state have done a great job, and we've gotten to about the point where we need about 10,000 more signatures, and we have 2 weeks to do that. I think we can do it, but we need everybody that's in your listening audience to call this number, 501-590-8260, or go to arkansastermlimits.org, as you stated before, and we need petitions in people's hands. If all you can get is family and friends, there's 10 slots on every petition sheet. Please just download the petition or call that number, 590-8260, and we will have a petition in your hands within 24 hours.
Okay. 501-590-8260, is that what you said?
That is it.
Okay. I'm going to give that number a few more times. Again, the website, arkansastermlimits.org. Voters like I'm reading from the website here, voters like term limits because they don't want career politicians. Talk a little bit about that, Tim.
Well, as most of your listening audience knows, 2014, the most deceptive amendment in Arkansas history was sponsored by Warwick Saban of Little Rock, who's running now for mayor, and John Woods, who is awaiting his prison term. They sponsored it. They called it an ethics amendment, but on page 16 of that amendment, they tripled their terms, and on an earlier page of that amendment, they tripled their pay. It was the most deceptive amendment in Arkansas history. The Arkansas Democrat Gazette called it the outrage of the year, and it is. Term limits is very popular in our state as in every state. We have had 2 landslide elections favoring term limits in the state, and what happened, how did the legislature react to it? They put it on an unrelated amendment and doubled their own terms, trying to deceive the voters of Arkansas. Now, John Woods is coming to, he has been judged by a jury of his peers, and a lot of the fraud that he has committed is being taken care of. But there's one fraud, and that's the term limits fraud that they did in 2014 that we still have work to do with. We must get signatures and get this on the ballot and give the voters of this state a chance to vote on an honest ballot title and to restore term limits in our state. And that's what we're working on now. People all around the state are working on it. If you could, and I'm talking to the listeners here, anyone who wants to get a petition, they can download it from the website, arkansastermlimits.org, and they can also call that number, 501-590-8260. We will have a petition in your hands within 24 hours. If you just want to sign the petition and you're in Little Rock, and we will have other locations throughout the next 2 weeks, but if you're in Little Rock, from 4 to 7 tonight, a couple of our volunteers will be meeting at Starbucks at Sam Peck and Cantrell. Just come on by. They will allow you to sign it, and all registered voters can sign this petition. But we need 84,000 good signatures to get it on the ballot. And once it gets on the ballot, the voters of Arkansas, unlike 2014, will have an honest ballot title to read and vote on in November.
So here's a question. How are these 10,000 signatures that you guys need at this point? Are you counting on some of these pages being thrown out? So are we going above and beyond here?
That's true. We are going above and beyond, but we do need 10,000 new signatures in the next 2 weeks. Some people will sign it last year and forget they signed it, might sign it again. Only one of those will count. There will be some voters that have moved off the registration rolls that they might not be counted. If they didn't sign legibly, they might not be counted. There are going to be forces in this state that are going to challenge every signature because the forces at the legislature, they have proven by their ballot title in 2014 that nothing is beneath them.
Yep.
They don't want term limits. They want to stay there forever. And it's our job to make sure that they know that the people rule in this state, not the legislators.
Oh, that's unbelievable. I think this is a huge opportunity to check government power, and I think corruption, because we're seeing it. And you mentioned Senator John Woods, who's awaiting sentencing. He's been convicted. We haven't got – I don't think that the state of Arkansas has fully recovered from what John Woods has done when it comes to what he's going to jail for, taking the kickbacks. I'm sure he's ordered to pay restitution at some point. But the fact is, the money that was sent to the entity that laundered it in the first place, I don't think we're going to ever get that money back. I don't know if we're ever going to see how it was actually spent and what else we might find. But this right here, correcting what John Woods did to the people of this state, not just to his district, which I think was District 7, but to the people of the entire state by perpetuating this lie, by creating this carefully crafted language that deceived all of us, well, most of us. This is a way to put the stain of John Woods and his corruption across this state to bed by correcting what he did. Now, real quick, just because these are some of the things that are on the website, some people might say, Tim Jacob, I thought we had term limits.
Well, we did have term limits. We had term limits for 22 years in this state. In fact, we had it because the largest yes vote in Arkansas history passed it in 1992. When the legislature tried to double their term in 2004, every county, that's 75 of 75 counties, said no to the legislature. It was 70% of the vote in 2004. And what did they do? Did they listen to the people's will? No, they hid a term limit extension in 2014 on page 22 of an ethics bill. It's the most unethical ethics bill I'd ever heard of.
Yeah.
It's deception.
And the way they framed it, Tim, they framed it as like we didn't have them. And it said to implement term limits when we already had term limits. So if you voted for it, you thought you were voting for term limits, but in reality, John Woods was tricking you. The Arkansas General Assembly was tricking you.
And we've heard from legislators that said, well, if we would have put it on the ballot the way it was supposed to be, you wouldn't have passed it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine purposely tricking the voters of this state and then being proud of it? And that's what they've done. So, and I'm not one of these, I'm not always going to bash the legislature. I have friends in the legislature. A lot of them go there for good purposes, but term limits is a healthy, reasonable solution, and it's not a panacea, but it's a vital first step to bring back representative government, not only in this state, but we need it in Washington as well.
Yeah,
We've passed it twice.
Go ahead.
It's time that we make sure that the legislature knows that they can't bamboozle us, they can't deceive us, that we're going to implement the policy that the voters of this state have honestly already passed in 2 landslide elections. So we need it on the ballot. Please, if you're of like mind, please call the number 501-590-8260 or go to arkansastermlimits.org and download that petition.
I think, if anything, stricter term limits will make the lobbyist/government job market more competitive for some of these politicians that take government jobs or become lobbyists. If they're term limited faster, then there's going to be more applicants or more potential jobs for them. So if anything, that would be a good thing as well. You'd have less of that revolving door or whatever. Again, we're talking with Tim Jacob. Now, the website is arkansastermlimits.org. And the number he keeps giving out, if you are listening and you want a petition in your hand within the next 24 hours, call this number, 501-590-8260. That's 501-590-8260. Or go to arkansastermlimits.org. You can print off the petition. You can go gather 10 signatures of your own. And they'll have the way to turn all that in and everything else. Tim, I really appreciate this effort, and I am so glad that we're so close to this goal, because right now, again, with the corruption that's going on in the state of Arkansas, we have to have a check on it. Now, there's some people that would say, and I've heard this from some legislators, they say, well, no, at this point, in order to end the corruption, we don't need term limits because the people who are the good guys, they need to be down there longer to ferret it out. And at this point, though, Tim, I disagree with that, because there's just more bad guys that are doing way more damage than there are good guys right now, in my opinion. That may be very offensive. Like you just said, we know people in the legislature who are good guys, but it seems like the bad ones end up carving out the financial niche for themselves, and it just seems like they have to be stopped. We have to count on them. They're attempting to do it, so let's limit the amount of time they can do it.
You're exactly right. It's healthy, it's reasonable, and the best reason for it is the voters have already said yes to term limits in 2 landslide elections. The legislature shouldn't be able to take it away from us. Most of this corruption was started by weak legislators sidling up to lobbyists. The lobbyists are against term limits. They hate term limits. There are 12,000 lobbyists in this country right now, and they've given over, in the last 20 years, they've given over $44 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars to campaigns and proposals and amendments. Guess how much they've given to term limits groups? Absolutely zero.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they hate term limits. They fight term limits every time. This is a way to keep lobbyists in check, too.
Yeah.
And it needs to be done. Arkansans, however they vote on this, I'm going to, listen to their vote. I wish the legislature would listen to their vote. But we need an honest ballot title when we go up there. We don't need to have voters deceived again. And that's what happened in 2014. The legislature should be ashamed They did this amendment in 2014 without any advertisements, without any press conferences, without one press release. It was a campaign of silence because of a dishonest ballot title. And we don't need to do legislation that way. We don't need to do amendments that way. And the legislature should be ashamed of their action then, and we need to overturn this fraud right now.
Well, I would just say, the fact that the guy that, that perpetuated this fraud, John Woods, is now going to jail, there's no surprise there. If you, with a clear conscience, could do what he did on the term limits thing by deceiving everybody, then I'm not surprised that same guy thought he could steal from the taxpayers. Now, if you are in the Little Rock area and you're listening on 101.1 The Answer right now, today from 4 to 7 at the Starbucks on Cantrell and what is it, Tim?
In Samtec Road. We're going to have a few volunteers there at that time. If you want to come in and just grab a cup of coffee and also sign that petition, grab a petition, please do.
Don't ask to use the bathroom, though. You could get arrested, I hear, Tim.
Oh, I think you can use the bathroom now.
Oh, you can. All right. They did all that diversity training. I forgot. My apologies.
Right.
All right. So from 4 to 7 at Starbucks, and folks, you go there and sign the petition if you want. Tim, I so appreciate it. I'd love to do this again soon. And I want to give daily updates about where people can sign in the Little Rock area or any of our other listening areas, whether it's Jonesboro, Stuttgart, Fort Smith, any of our other, or, obviously Little Rock and or Russellville. Tim Jacob, the website is arkansastermlimits.org. That's arkansastermlimits.org. Thank you so much, Tim.
I appreciate your help, Paul.
All righty. Folks, we got to do this. We got to curb corruption. This is a way we can do it. You got to get out there and sign those petitions, print off your petitions, make sure, that you're a registered voter, but and you want to make sure that just, your friends and your family do this around your work. I mean, this is a bipartisan issue. I don't think Democrats are opposed to this. Independents are not opposed to this by and large. Republicans are not opposed to this by and large. And just show them the headlines and the corruption. It'd actually be a good teaching moment to give them something. You would already start your conversation with political agreement more than likely, because everybody can agree on term limits if you're a normal person, right? But then you could use that as a springboard to educate them about the corruption within our Arkansas government at the Marble Palace. You could say, and look at Jake Files and John Woods and Mike Neal and Rusty Cranford and Hank Wilkins and now Jeremy Hutchison, the governor's nephew. All of these things, just by asking them to sign the term limits petition, you actually could really open the door for a teachable moment without, people shutting down because they're so jaded and they can't stand partisan politics. And maybe they're buying the Trump derangement syndrome and all of that other stuff that is really at this point becoming a clinical diagnosis, because they're buying the mainstream media's lies. Folks, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. This is Conduit News Radio. Back in a minute.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works Obamacare private option, has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues, from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are 2 matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Somebody asking, would the term limits be retroactive? I believe they would be. This is the text, people wanting to know how long, or, what would the term limits go down to from where they are now. A proposed amendment to the Arkansas Constitution concerning term limits for members of the Arkansas General Assembly to provide that no person may be elected to more than 3 two-year terms as a member of the House of Representatives, to more than 2 four-year terms as a member of the Senate, or to any term that, if served, would cause the member to exceed a total of 10 years of service in the General Assembly. To repeal Section 2C of Amendment 73 that established a years of service limit on members of the General Assembly of 16 years, to provide that the 10-year service limit shall include all 2 and 4-year terms along with full years of any partial term served as a result of the special election to fill a vacancy, to apply the limits to terms in service in the General Assembly on and after January 1st, 1993, to provide that this amendment shall not cut short or invalidate a term to which a member of the General Assembly was elected prior to the effective date of this amendment, so it wouldn't be retroactive, according to this. To provide, so I was wrong, it's not retroactive if I read that right. To provide that notwithstanding the General Assembly's constitutional authority to propose, but it would mean that they'd be done, okay? It wouldn't end a term, so you wouldn't have this flurry of special elections, but when their term is over, they're done. Which is good. The General Assembly shall not have the authority to propose an amendment to the Constitution regarding term limits for the House of Representatives or Senate, and to continue reserving that power to the people under Article 5, Section 1. So not only does this set right what was done wrong, ladies and gentlemen, it also says, and by the way, you guys can never touch this issue again, which I would certainly support. Reading that, though, I wonder if there'd be any challenges to that aspect of the law. And to declare that if any provision of this amendment should be held invalid, the remainder shall stand. Ha! So they've got this in the so even if you challenged that provision that the House and the Senate could never revisit term limits, which I think that you would get a constitutional challenge on that because, I don't know the Arkansas Constitution as well as I should. I don't know if there's a non-delegation clause. I don't know if there's an all legislative powers clause. All legislative powers herein granted. If you have all legislative powers, then there would be no issue that the legislature couldn't take up or attempt to. But it's saying that even if it's thrown out, the remainder shall still stand, meaning the term limits would still stand. So basically, it's going from, right now you can be down there now for 16 years. They're saying now you'd be down there for 10 years. And that's plenty of time. 10 years is plenty of time. At this point, I've been on the fence before. At this point, I completely reject the idea that you got to be down there for a long time. Listen, Well, you're going to say, well, the lobbyists and the bureaucrats are going to mislead you. Yeah, that's going to happen. But, folks, you misunderstand. You assume that there's nothing you can do. You assume that there's no law that you can pass that would curb the influence of bureaucracies and their lobbying power. I don't believe that bureaucracies should be able to lobby for themselves. And if you listen to Mr. Josh Waters from Political Strategies, an attorney, his time down at the Capitol last year, he realized something, and we've got this on the best of the best, or the impression of the session, that most of the lobbying that's done is actually from government agencies itself. That has got to stop. Back in a minute.
Hey, folks, we're trying to build the Liberty Machine, as you hear me talk about all the time. One of the best ways to build this Liberty Machine is to get our content and to get Conduit News Radio out to more people, to make them know who we are and what we're talking about. So I had an idea. What you see here is the 2018 Arkansas Democrat Gazette Best of the Best Reader's Choice Awards. And it says here, let your voice be heard during the Arkansas Democrat Gazette's annual Best of the Best contest. Central Arkansas residents can vote for their favorite restaurants, salons, and more. Well, they can also vote for their favorite radio host. So for those of you listening in Central Arkansas, I would encourage you to go and fill out the Best of the Best. As you can see right here, you get to the local radio DJ. You know what? Just the fact of getting nominated. Now, you have to fill out at least 10 slots in order for your nominations to be considered. So make sure you're educated about where is the best golf course, in your opinion, in Central Arkansas. But if you'll just put my name in there, I think just being nominated would give Conduit News a platform to get in front of other people, to get in front of new listeners, and because that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get in front of as many new people as we possibly can, because knowledge is power, like you've always heard us say. Thomas Jefferson said, an educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. So I would encourage you, this is just an idea, one way you could help build the Liberty Machine.
It's just untruthful. If you look at the facts, it's just not borne out. Again, if the type of doctors that we want to attract are the type that are looking whether when they kill somebody in a hospital, if they're one of the 685 people a day die by preventable medical errors in hospitals in this country. That's over 400,000 people a year dying in this country by preventable medical errors by the Johns Hopkins study. Now, that's scary, Paul, and we want to take away the people's rights. I mean, what we need to do is make sure that we're protecting folks and making creating better systems and making sure that close to 400,000 people a year are not dying by preventable medical errors.
I mean, who's gonna argue with that? I mean, who's gonna argue with that? I mean, I guess they would. Now let's talk about the rulemaking authority. I noticed that the Supreme Court of Arkansas.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. So the Arkansas corruption that we're seeing in the headlines has irritated, I think, a lot of people in the legislature who are not corrupt. Not everybody is. A lot of them, most of them, I would say, are not. But at the same time, I'm not sure most people recognize how bad the corruption really is. You know what I'm saying? A few of them do. I think people like Senator Terry Rice, Linda Collins Smith, Bill Sample, who called immediately for the resignation of Jeremy Hutchinson. I think they recognize how bad it is. And I also think that State Representative Grant Hodges recognizes how bad it is as well. And this letter, can you throw that up on the screen? Let's show everybody. June 18th, so this was a couple of days ago. Representative Grant Hodges calls for ethics and election reform. Quote, I believe it's time for the people's representatives in Little Rock to step up and take a hard look at making our state government more transparent and accountable. Joining us now, we have State Representative Grant Hodges on the line. Grant, welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, Paul. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really glad that you came on, could come on, and I'm just wanted to give you a platform because I really think it's powerful that you're, calling for more transparency in our government. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about it. Really what I'm proposing or thinking through to maybe tackle this corruption issue that we're having, or at least offer some ideas, because I haven't seen too many ideas, at least for legislative changes. The first is one that some other folks have discussed already, is disclosure from our candidates and elected officials. So, just tightening that up and looking at what the federal government requires and what other states around the country require for their elected officials to disclose. I think we all know there are some gaps in our current disclosure system. If you're an attorney or if you're doing consulting or something like that, then it's pretty easy to mask how you're getting your income. Second is looking at how the state could improve our investigations and prosecutions of public corruption. So, my question lately has been, why does it seem like it's only the federal government, only the FBI and the U.S. prosecuting attorneys, U.S. Attorney's Office who's investigating and prosecuting these cases? Because it's not, public corruption is not just under the purview of the federal government.
Why do you think that is? Have you got an answer when you ask that question?
Yeah, the answer I've gotten so far seems to be that, really they seem better equipped with, our current law and the current way we're resourcing the state. So, the FBI just has resources that the state police maybe doesn't, or, whether that's manpower or equipment or maybe statutory authority. But really, Arkansas, we have public corruption laws on the books. We have a state police. We have state prosecuting attorneys, and they do work with the FBI. And in a lot of cases, they're doing great work, and we appreciate it. But I think we need to look at maybe the state could step up our investigations and enforcement because I'm not sure that we're really fully utilizing the resources that we have in the state to investigate and prosecute these kind of things. And so I think that's worth looking at because I guess my feeling is really in Arkansas we're not really doing our share of the work, I guess. I would like to see the state really sort of step up and take a lead and say we're not going to tolerate any more of this. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give our state the tools to investigate and prosecute corruption, so that it's not just the FBI and the U.S. attorneys that are handling these cases.
I think that's a really good idea, and I've asked the same question. Where is the state of Arkansas when it comes to this whole thing? And a lot of the new Senate ethics proposals has to do with members. I guess I'm going to use the word tattling on each other. And the idea is like that they are going to police themselves. They are going to grade their own papers. That's kind of, I don't know why that's not happening now. I mean, I know they want to do something, but I kind of am skeptical. Why hasn't that happened now? There's nothing stopping many of these people from going to the Ethics Commission right now, and that hasn't happened. You talk in your letter, we're talking with State Representative Grant Hodges from District 96, and that's out of Rogers, right, Grant?
Yes, sir, that's right.
So you talk about in your letter permanently changing the system, and I think that's a really good goal. You say too often our policies are reactive and a whack-a-mole approach. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I actually started writing this back in February. I pulled it up the other day, and I started writing this back in February, and so yeah, it's not a reaction to anything that's recent. Obviously, things have been happening lately, but too often in the legislature we just sort of respond to the issue of the day. We're not really trying to think more long term. And so I know some folks think, well, these cases are being caught. These bad actors are being caught, and they are being prosecuted. They are being punished, and that's true. A lot of these are. But there's probably cases that aren't being caught, and the fact is, it does keep happening. So, we may not ever be perfect. There will always be people who don't follow the rules, don't follow the law. But I think we need to ask ourselves, how do we look longer term and say, how can we prevent this from happening in the future, or how can we be better equipped to respond to it than we are now in the future? And so that's what I'm trying to look at. And I say in the letter, I think we need to look at maybe the state attorney general being involved here, maybe having a public corruption unit in the AG's office. I know I've looked around. It seems like the majority of other state AGs have a public corruption unit, and that would give us another set of eyes for this sort of thing. And then lastly, in the letter, I talk about potentially instituting recall elections in Arkansas.
That was my favorite part, and yeah, maybe it's because I have a few in mind that I would love to recall, but so has that one gotten any pushback? I mean, if the Arkansas General Assembly were to actually pass a law that made recall elections of themselves possible, that would be, that'd be a big deal. I would give them kudos if they did that.
Yeah, I think of what I'm proposing, that's probably going to be the toughest one, and it could end up having to be a constitutional amendment. I'm going to have to look into that, but as I say in the letter, there are already 19 states in the country that have recall elections, and I didn't know until I started researching, but Arkansas already has recall elections for our local officials. So you can recall mayors and county judges and folks like that, which I wasn't aware of, but essentially you just have to get a certain number of petition signatures, which would be spelled out in the law, and if that amount of signatures is met, then it would trigger an election, and the incumbent politician would have a chance to make their case for why they shouldn't be kicked out of office. But there would be probably something like a 3-month campaign to decide whether or not to recall that official. And the reasons that I've kind of worked through are, one, right now we have basically no political remedy for removing a corrupt public official from their office. We have stuff like impeachment, or maybe we could expel a member of our body, but we haven't ever seen that happen that I'm aware of, and just because of the way the legislature works, where everyone knows everyone, and to expel a member or impeach someone, it just seems like that's never something that the bodies are willing to do. So, recall would be, I think, a political remedy for the people in that district to decide. We're not talking about a legal remedy here. We're not trying to say you're guilty of a crime, but the people of that district saying, you violated our trust. You're not who we thought you were. We don't want you to hold the position that we elected you to. And this would give them an ability to recall them from office. And then secondly, we've seen time and again in cases like this, the public official will use their elected office as a bargaining chip in negotiations with the prosecution. So, if they've done something corrupt and they've been caught, then and a lot of times, not just in Arkansas but other states, they'll negotiate and say, well, if you'll drop charge all the charges or reduce my charges, then I'll resign. And with recall, I think this gives a chance for the people to say, well, maybe we don't think you should be able to use your elected office to help you, get out of the crimes you committed.
Wow.
And they could make that decision and recall them from office.
That's a really good point. I've never thought of it that way, about how they do use it as a bargaining chip. I think about Jake Files, for example. I think about how all of the reports about what he had done, falsifying the bids for other companies so that he could get the lowest bid and get the general improvement. I mean, we knew about that a full 12 months before he pled guilty. And so, I mean, if you just take that example, Grant, I mean, if the people of Fort Smith would have had the ability to recall him, I think they would have gotten the signatures immediately. I mean, the stuff that was out about him, and then when you had the sworn FBI affidavit, you had that, I think, 6 months before. And I'm just round figures, but I mean, that was an FBI that was an affidavit by an FBI agent under penalty of perjury, accusing him of crimes, and the very crimes that he pled guilty to months later. So I think you're onto something here,
Right.
Grant Hodges. I don't know if you're going to be a big hit at the next caucus meeting, but I think you're onto something.
Yeah, well, that's never my priority, but I agree with you. And a lot of these cases we've seen, it does seem to come to a head later in the term. But you could have a situation where take a senator who's elected to a 4-year term. They could something like this could pop up in their first year, and really there's nothing the voters could do for another 3.5, 4 years. So. I think it gives us just another tool to hold people accountable, and we'll see how other people react. But one other thing, and this isn't in my letter, but it came up as I've been looking into this more. Is I don't know if anyone's talked about if you're convicted of something while you're holding public office, then I don't think you should be able to keep your state pension either. I don't know if that's something you've heard, but I think we should look at that as well. If you're convicted of crimes while holding your public office, then you forfeit your state retirement, state pension.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I have heard that. I think that makes complete sense. You've betrayed the trust of the people. Why should the people be obligated to fund anything you do in the future? And that's a really good thing to do. So just real quick, what's the, because I had sources that said that the House was putting together a letter. I haven't seen that letter that is, kind of a unified statement about the state of Arkansas corruption and the stuff we're seeing in the headlines. I guess that's been put on hold or what. I mean, you have this letter, but was there, talks going on between you guys about maybe putting out a joint statement? And if so, where is it, or is it dead? Is it not going to happen?
Well, I know the Republican House caucus had a statement they were going to release. My understanding was that was going to go out earlier this week. So if it hasn't, then I don't know where that is. As far as something coming from the full body, that I don't know. I have spoken to the speaker and told him that I was working on this, and just informed him of what I was proposing. And I do know that they are actively working on something. I don't know exactly what the details there are. I'm not really a part of those discussions yet, but I imagine something will be coming. I think they were looking at what the Senate was doing, and then because of the change with the speaker, that delayed the House a little bit, I think. But I would imagine something will be coming out soon. Okay.
Well, hey, State Representative Grant Hodges, I always appreciate having you on, and I really appreciate you stepping up with this letter, and it's certainly a sign of leadership, and I appreciate that, and I know your district does and the whole state does.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate what you do, and appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All righty. Have a great day. State Representative Grant Hodges, everybody. We're going to take a break and be back in just a moment.
This is Representative Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. From the beginning, authors of our Constitution, Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers advocated the general election of people who possess wisdom, discernment, and loyalty to their constituents. Why? The people expect their representatives to uphold their promises. The representatives recognize the honor bestowed by these constituents. Advancement comes from their followers, not the government. Elections are frequent, and accountability is a compelling factor to loyalty and support from constituents. From a July 5th, 1929 speech by President Calvin Coolidge. This is Representative Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed roller lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. This is for all you big government establishment Republicans out there. Hope you're listening. I keep a close watch on these votes of mine. I keep my finger in the wind all the time. I vote big government, and you will pay with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, there's always an excuse not to shrink government. It's much easier just to toe that line. I find it very easy to be rhino blue. I find I'm not alone when failing to come through. Yes, big government, I'm a fool for you. 'Cause every time I toe that line. Legislative sleight of hand would be an accurate description. Or you could just say, they can't quit towing that party line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I'll vote big government both day and night. And act like I'm shocked when it all comes to light. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, the phrase toe the line is the equivalent of toe the mark, both of which mean to conform to a rule or standard. You could also call it the status quo. Tax and spend, I'm always on your side. I love writing government checks that I cannot hide. Buying people's votes always turns the tide. 'Cause every time I toe the line. The Oxford Dictionary Word Histories. The idiom toe the line, from an athletics analogy, originated in the early 19th century. I hope you don't watch these votes of mine. Hope you don't see through the lies and slime. 'Cause I plan on spending with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line.
You know, toeing the line is what the folks down in Little Rock call progress.
PHP Parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Kind of building with what State Representative Grant Hodges said, it's a big hit with the folks listening on Facebook. Tim writing that a recall election for any reason would make legislators think before making promises and certainly think before breaking their word. This is a really good point. Based on breaking their word, I mean, I can think of at least one politician for sure, 100%, if we had recall laws, would have already been recalled based on his word being broken. Yeah. That would be a game changer. It will have to be a constitutional amendment. Jackie writing, the recall would have to be a constitutional amendment. It would be a game changer. It really would. I think with local communities, you could organize and really try to hold these people accountable. They're not going to police themselves. They're not going to police themselves. And I think that's obvious. Now, the House Republican Caucus has released a statement on their Facebook page 11 hours ago. I just checked. Joe, throw this up there for everybody. Yes, there it is. Regarding the recent allegations made against elected officials, the Arkansas Republican Caucus has released the following statement. It is regrettable that the bad actions of a few have distracted from the great things being done in Arkansas to create jobs and grow our economy. While everyone is afforded due process by our justice system, House Republicans will not tolerate public corruption and will continue working to protect the public trust and hold our members to the high standards of integrity that voters expect. Okay, get that off the screen. Get that off the screen. Get it off the screen. I guess I was told, the statement was going to be a little stronger than that. It's regrettable that the bad actions of the few. No, what I think it's regret. Yeah, it is a few, but it's regrettable that you guys, folks, you guys have known this. To act like that you haven't known. Why haven't you said anything before now? Why are you only doing it now? Because it's making the news? It is for just because they're a member of your own party, you don't say anything. Just because you'd be going against the leadership, or you'd be going against the governor's nephew. Like, no, I mean, I'm not even saying. I'm saying, like, at what point do statements like this? And I'm sorry, I'm disappointed in it. I think Grant Hodges' letter is fantastic. But I think statements like this are extremely disappointing because it makes you say, well, it's just the bad actions of a few. Well, no. I mean, where's the responsibility on you when you knew it was going on? Is there any responsibility? Do any of you think that you yourself are responsible for not being more aggressive and less worried about making somebody else mad? I mean, you guys have bully pulpits. You guys could be exposing this corruption. You could have been exposing it a long time. You know, if there wasn't, I mean, there's one lone voice in the wilderness. His name was Senator Brian King, and he's right. He is right. He has been right. He is the one that's correct. History judges Brian King to be correct because he's the one that's always been asking the difficult questions, and he's not so concerned about whether or not you feel like he's being congenial or not because he's trying to ferret out the corruption. Where are the rest of you? Well, that's just not my personality. Then maybe you shouldn't have run for office because government is a necessary evil. That's what George Washington said. A necessary evil. Left unchecked, it will grow. It will rob the people of their money. It will rob the people of their freedom. And the government, politicians, the bureaucrats, they will get rich off of it. And that's what we had here. You guys had a responsibility. And maybe you didn't think the corruption was that bad. But now you do. So, hey, let's call a truce, and let's have you guys speak out against leadership, speak out against your own party. If you see something, if you hear something, you need to say something, and you don't need to be worried about what the consequences are. The state of Arkansas corruption is such, you don't even know how bad it is. I happen to. I think I know more than the average person. I certainly know as much, there are plenty of legislators that know as much as I do. And so it's time to act. It's not time to give a statement where you talk about growing the economy. When we're talking about corruption, who cares about your spin and your talking points? Very disappointed with the Arkansas Republican House Caucus releasing that statement in light of what's going on. Come on, let's get real. Let's get real. Arkansas, be safe.